Yeah. James and I actually observed something similar in this, where we're talking about sites that did not have a favorites, a wish list kind of functionality. The only place you would keep to remember, I found that, is to throw it in a cart, and it's a persistent cart. And we always discourage the use of a persistent cart, but here's the behavior: they use it like to remember what they want, and they'll come back and check out.
Yeah, and here's what's funny, and this is a classic example of disconnect between the business and technology teams, is that the marketing teams absolutely know that people go to the cart, because they will try to add things that the customer, that are associated with things in the cart and all kinds of stuff. But the test teams are not optimizing for the most important click path that most users use. So by including and capturing that RUM information, you can then create a test plan that directly reflects reality, right? And at the end of the day, and you get it from one source, right? So there's a ton of smart performance engineers out there, and they'll go to old Omniture data. They'll go to marketing and wrestle with marketing to get some kind of information about what real users are doing or what users are doing. They'll go mine log files. They'll go to 4 or 5 different locations, spend a long time building a test plan, but actually, I don't know what you think, but our experience is a test plan that really isn't fully vetted and agreed upon by everybody. Well, if it's what really happens in real production, how can anybody argue? So by including real user monitoring as part of your testing, you're assured that your test plans, or at least a set of your test plans, are super accurate and connected to reality. And our next step, of course, is automating that whole process. So you push a button and you have a new test plan. So that's what's happening this year.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the upcoming conference. I know you're giving a keynote just briefly, and there's a couple different things you have. There's a session and a keynote and stuff. So maybe tell us a little bit, what you're excited about to give a talk on. I think it's called the Measures of Quality.
Yes,
right?
I'm excited because I'm excited to be provocative, right? I've been in this industry, in this space a long time, so sometimes I feel like I can get away with calling people, calling things in our industry when they need to be called out. And
yes,
I frankly have been amused and annoyed at some of the discussions around metrics as of late.
Oh yeah,
and at the end of the day, as a vendor. An evil vendor, right?
You're more than a vendor to me, to us.
That's good. Thank you for making me feel
of course
like more than that. But the point is back to the point of SOASTA's repositioning for this year, right? The measures of quality need to be considered outside of the box we live in as testers and developers, right? So the earlier point I made about functional and performance intersection, right? There's no, when you go talk to a consumer of the website that you may very well be coding for or testing for, they have no concept of the technical terms you're going to lay out there, right? About well, let me start and right at the beginning, they don't care about bug burn down rates, right? They don't care about how many bugs escaped into production or not. They don't care about, like I said earlier, security or functionality. And then when you then kind of move to the business stakeholders for whom we are providing our development and testing services at the end of the day, they also don't care about those things. They care about what's the productivity of the engineering organization. They care about what's the rating of our web property, in relation to our competitors.
Right.
They care about how much revenue did that latency outage just cost us. Right. So my talk is going to be about the measures of quality more from a layperson's perspective, and how, as testers, developers, operations people, we need to get way better at being able to quantify the value of our day-to-day work to the people that are actually signing our paychecks. So I think that will be mildly provocative, but I think it'll be also mildly illuminating. And by the way, it's how SOASTA is talking to our customers. So I'm just using, our way of, helping to let, CIOs and CMOs and heads of IT understand, what is automation going to bring you? Yeah. Why would you change the way you monitor and start looking at real users? Why would you, why would you consider, frankly, outsourcing your load testing, right? All kinds of things that when we go and sell, we have to understand. So I think it's important for me to share that with the SDP team.
Good for you. I think that's great. And especially understanding that your role as an engineer in any capacity is usually about communicating the pros and cons, the risks and rewards, and of course the value of what you do,
right.
And beyond being just the master of a given tool or a given piece of technology, and be provocative. Make a little sting. Now you're also doing a repeat session of the really famous. It was if no one was there in Denver, it's a standing room only. Jane, get me off this crazy thing. which I love that title.
Yeah,
so I'm glad you're repeating it. What was so cool about that session that it was standing room only?
Well, I'd like to think that it was, all the people that remembered the Jetsons, but I'm not sure that did it, right?
Not just that, yeah, exactly.
So it might have been just, what is this silly title all about? But what it focuses on is getting to a continuous delivery mode with testing and where automation fits, what continuous integration is and means. Mm-hmm. One of my favorite topics is continuous performance testing. Right. And frankly, over the last year and a half, I've seen huge interest and uptake and adoption of it. And it's people don't really even know what that means, right? It's essentially, getting load testing earlier into development so that, scalability is built right in. And we're not always in this crazy thing, which is the revolving escalator or whatever that we're always running to the top and running to the bottom. How do you get to a continuous approach where automation and testing is part of an agile process, and you start to be able to free up some time to do better testing, to do better test planning, to actually do better collaborative type of things versus just responding to, okay, we need to run another test. And by the way, we're agile, but testing's not, so please hurry.
Yeah.
Right. So it's really looking at that problem and trying to see where are the little pieces that you can begin to make changes and ultimately head to a really an iterative approach that matches what frankly development is also doing.
Mm-hmm. And if you've got, if in the Michael Bolton world of manual checking. Mm-hmm. Versus, I think to the scholars that are grown up in testing, looking at, you can never really automate manual testing. You can automate manual checking.
Great point.
Yeah. And to that point, a lot of people do think this is crazy. We can't get told. You mean you're going to release that code and I never even quote unquote touched it? Mm-hmm. But the truth is, all the tests and checks that you have automated to go into the process, you're going to automate them and they just run by default. And there you go.
No,
and so
right.
It can seem really crazy to a lot of folks that until they find, there's always a point I see when the light bulb goes off and they're like, oh, I get it. So now all those repeated checks that I just get bored with doing all day long every day that are not really exciting and fun, I don't have to do them anymore. And they're getting done automatically.
Yeah, and I think you've hit on a point that I know that Michael Bolton and others in his camp would agree with, right? And this mm-hmm. is where, I'm not one to say that you'll ever automate everything because you can't. There's human subjectivity that comes into play very frequently. Mm-hmm. But anytime you're running a check, and I agree with that terminology, more than 3 times and you're confident that it's not going to change, you are wasting human intellect and wasting time.
Yeah.
And if you don't have an imminent plan to automate that, there's something wrong with your process. Right? That's where we're at. And mobile is the greatest example of if you can't figure out when and how to automate as soon as possible, you will always be a serious bottleneck. And frankly, Mark, we're seeing companies completely usurp the testing process because of those delays. And so
because of that perception from management is if I try to go and do full testing, I'm always looking for a way out of that bottleneck in the process.
Yeah, and that's a whole nother topic for a whole nother talk another time. Or how do you reduce the likelihood that you are becoming irrelevant. Right. So we need to that is definitely another topic for another day.
Very cool. So those are both the keynote and the session are really great. But there's some other cool things coming from SOASTA, again, along with the extracurricular activities, I guess we'll call them, during the conference. And really an awesome deal if somebody wants to jump in and become a cloud testista. Is that would be the right word?
That's a good one. Thanks for coining that one. We'll give you a quarter, 50 cents for that.
50 cents for that terrible terminology. But people can actually jump into Cloud Test. There's some certification classes and some ways people can, at the conference, really get involved. So what is that about?
This is super exciting. We have developed SOASTA University. We've got a couple hundred certified load testers of our platform out there, today. And what that means is they've gone through a fundamentals level, and there's advanced training as well for what we call, cloud testing fundamentals. And at the end of the day, this is the new generation of load testing, Mark.
Right.
And so we're bringing some of our best instructors down to STPCON for Monday and Tuesday, and they're going to run only a mildly abbreviated course. It's usually a 3-day course, which includes lots of exam time, and we're not going to include the exam time in this course, so we're putting everything you need to know to get started with cloud testing into 2 days. On the surface, it's $100 extra for 2 days of training, which we usually charge about $895 for, so it's a good value.
That's amazing.
And it's good. And when you're done, you will be prepared, assuming you are, you followed along and done what you need to do to take the test. And we're going to waive the price of the test too. So feasibly you could get SOASTA Cloud Test certified for $100.
That's pretty amazing.
But wait, there's more.
But wait, there's more. A set of Ginsu knives.
So what we're offering is both a discount from STP, a discount from SAP to make the STP to make the certification plus the STP conference cheaper, or the best deal you could possibly get is by using a SOASTA discount code when you sign in. So if you just want to go to the show and you use SOASTA CERT S15, so that's all caps SOASTA CERT S15.
Yep.
You'll get into the STPCon for $995. And I highly encourage, because I'm talking about it, if you want to participate in the certification program, use the same code, choose package K, and you get in the show plus the 2 days of certification for $1,095. So currently that's the best deal to get into STPCon, period. And so want people to take advantage of that. We are asking, once you sign up for the SOASTA certification, you show up, because we're making a big investment to get people there.
Yeah.
And there's a few prerequisites. They're listed on the website, on the SOASTA, the STPCon website.
Yeah.
But don't be intimidated. If you want to get into load testing, this is a great opportunity to get to certified status.
That's amazing. In fact, I've not heard of anything at that level of including and getting certified on a leading tool in the industry in my career. So thank you. That's really, really cool. So you would just head out to the STPCon website under the pricing page. So pricing-spring 2015. Look down there on the new packages for SOASTA J and SOASTA K. There's the K package there.
Yep, and there's also a write up of the package on the STPCon website as well. So
cool. Awesome. So Brad, thanks for joining me. Maybe we can share kind of the basics of how people can get on board and follow what's happening with SOASTA. I even forget sometimes the Twitter handle is Cloud Test. It's not SOASTA. SOASTA is some weird other thing. I have no idea what some anime.
There's something from Japan related to SOASTA, but in Twitter you type in search for SOASTA, you'll find us. But we're at Cloud Test on Twitter. We also have a good presence on LinkedIn and a Facebook account. So, search SOASTA on LinkedIn or SOASTA on Facebook, and you can keep up with what we're up to. Facebook obviously is kind of the fun stuff, the social stuff that we're up to, and then we link articles and information, and we're actually building a lot more groups and other things on the LinkedIn pages related to SOASTA as well. So lots of ways to stay updated.
Yeah, and so if of course if people do want